Did you know that more than 25,000 of game developers lost their job in the last 2 years? If you're trying to break into the industry right now, it can feel impossible. But here's the good news. I've talked to recruiters and developers at top game dev studios, and in this video I will show you exactly how to stand out and land your dream job in game dev. Hi everyone and welcome. If you're new here, my name is Rafał Obremski and I've been working as a professional game developer for about 9 years. Over that time, I've worked on everything from small indie projects to massive AAA games. One thing I know for sure is getting a job in game development isn't easy. In this video, I will guide you through the entire process of getting hired at a game dev studio step by step. I will break down how to write a strong resume, what to include in your portfolio, and how to approach interviews. Whether you're new to game dev or already in the industry and looking to take the next step. At the end, I will share a list of actual interview questions so you can prepare in advance. This is the first video in a mini-series where I will cover different ways to start a career in game development. In this one, we'll focus on getting hired at an existing studio, and in the next one, I will talk about starting as a solo developer. And after that, I will go into how to build your own game dev company. If that sounds interesting, make sure to subscribe not to miss out on those videos. Now let's get into it. Before we talk about getting hired, it is important to understand what the game dev job market looks like right now. The industry is going through one of its biggest shakeups in years, and that affects what opportunities are out there. The last few years have been a roller coaster for gaming studios. After the COVID pandemic led to a huge spike in game sales, people just preferred to stay at home and play games, which led to more and more game sales. Companies ramped up hiring to keep up with the demand. But when the industry cooled down, many studios found themselves overstaffed. Well, they simply hired too many developers to keep up with that demand. That, combined with raising interest rates, shaky investments, and some financial decisions, this all led to a mass layoffs across the whole industry. The layoffs now slowed down a bit in 2025, but new job openings are still limited compared to just a few years ago. This doesn't mean getting into game dev is impossible. It just means that you need to be more strategic about it. And one of the biggest changes you need to be aware of is something I will call level inflation. You see, a few years ago, if you wanted to, let's say, start as a junior developer, you just needed a basic understanding of your field. No professional experience was expected. And here's a crazy fact. Many junior positions right now ask for prior experience. And that's like needing a driver's license to get driving lessons. But don't worry, there is a way to bypass this. At the very beginning of your journey, you need to answer one of the biggest questions for yourself. What do you actually want to do in game dev? Game development is a massive field, and bigger studios are made up of specialized teams. In a smaller indie project, you might be working on a little bit of everything, but in a big company, you'll be focusing on a very specific role, whether that's designing levels, programming game systems, creating concept art, animating characters, or something entirely different. One thing to keep in mind is that companies today are looking for what is called a T-shaped specialist. Think of it like this. Imagine two developers who choose their career path to be a quest designer. The first one, let's call him Bob, focuses only on writing and creating the structure for good quests that will fit the game's narrative. Bob is great at storytelling, pacing, and making sure the quest flows well, but he doesn't have much knowledge outside of that. Bob is what we call an I-shaped specialist, deeply skilled in one specific area, but not very flexible outside of that. And that is completely fine, don't get me wrong. Bob's goal is to be the best quest designer he can be, and his expertise is very valuable. Now take another quest designer. Let's call her Sarah. Sarah also specializes in storytelling and quest structure, but on top of that, she can understand how cinematics are created, and she can work with team to improve cutscenes. Maybe she has also some knowledge of gameplay design, so she is able to tweak enemy encounters in a quest, or even script basic boss fights. Sarah is still primarily a quest designer, but she brings additional skills to the table. Sarah is what we call a T-shaped specialist. She has a strong specialty while also knowing enough about related areas to be adaptable and contribute in different parts of development. Back in the day, game studios used to build the teams mainly with I-shaped specialists, where each person focused entirely on their specific task. But today's trend is T-shaped specialists are increasingly preferred because modern game development is very complex, and understanding how different systems interact makes you far more valuable. So when you're planning your career, pick a specialty, but you should also aim to expand your knowledge into connected areas. I mean, think about it. If you were to hire someone, would you rather a person who only knows one thing and they are very good at it, but it's still one thing? Or would you prefer to go for someone that knows a lot about one thing, but just in case they can jump and create other parts of the game? This approach will make a difference when looking for a job. Not just because of your skills, but because having an open mindset to new areas of development makes you a much stronger candidate. So be sure to mention that on a job interview. Before we dive into portfolios, here is a quick challenge. Pause this video right now and write down one skill you want to master in game dev. Got it? Great. Let's now talk about how to showcase that skill in your portfolio. If there is one thing that can make or break your chances of getting hired, especially at the start of your journey, it's your portfolio. Imagine this. You are in an interview and the recruiter asks, "Can you show us something you've made?" Would you rather fumble through a vague explanation or pull out a polished portfolio on the table that just speaks for itself? Exactly. So let's make sure you're ready for that specific moment. The type of portfolio you need depends on your role. If you are an artist, this could mean a collection of concept art or 3D models. If you are already working at a game studio, some companies allow artists to showcase their work from released projects. It's worth asking if you can post your contributions to sites like ArtStation, and this can be a strong addition to your portfolio for future opportunities, even if you're not actively looking for a job right now. So it's worth to check it with your employer. Maybe you can actually start building your portfolio from what you're already doing in the company. However, most portfolios consist of personal passion projects made outside of the company. For game designers, a playable prototype is the best way to demonstrate your skills. If, for example, you want to be a combat designer, you don't need a full game, just a single polished combat encounter that you've designed and implemented. If you want to be level designer, for example, your portfolio could be a well-structured level built for a specific type of a game. If it's possible, adding a simple playable character so the level can be explored properly is a great bonus, but it's not a strict requirement. Just make sure the character has the movement type intended for the level structure you created. For programmers, a GitHub repository with clean and well-documented code is ideal. A strong portfolio isn't just about showcasing your skills. It also helps you prepare for the recruitment process. Many studios will give candidates a task during hiring, such as building a small system in Unreal Engine or Unity for game design positions, for example. If you've already worked on similar project, you will be much better prepared for the interview. The key here is to make your portfolio easily accessible. Please avoid private Google Drive links, the zip files that require permission, or just anything that creates friction for recruiters. Instead, put your work somewhere instantly viewable, like ArtStation for artists, itch.io for playable prototypes, or GitHub for programming projects. Once your portfolio is ready, it's time to start planning your job search. And here is my proposition on how to go about it. You can think of it as a 3-tier job search strategy. Tier 1 is your dream studios. These are your dream jobs, the ones that you would be most excited about. Tier 2, good opportunities that align with your skills. List companies that align with your skill but might not be your top priority choice. Tier 3, every job opening that matches your skills in any way. List literally every job opening that matches your skill set, even if the studio doesn't make the kind of games you usually play. The more applications you'll send, the better your chances, so let's not limit ourselves here. Once you have your list, it's a good idea to set a deadline for yourself. You should give yourself a specific amount of time, let's say 1 or 2 months, to actively apply for jobs. If you don't land a job within that time, you should take a step back, analyze what is working and what is not, and adjust your approach. Once you have a portfolio and general idea with plan for job searching, it is extremely important to start the process of networking and making connections with people in the game dev industry. The first and the most important step here is create your LinkedIn page. I know that for some of you, this might feel like a weird chore. Many people who want to make games tend to be more introverted and don't really enjoy the idea of networking. But here's the thing. LinkedIn isn't like Facebook or Instagram. It's not a place where you keep up with your friends or share vacation photos. Although some of the people try to use it that way, which is quite weird if you think about it. But LinkedIn is rather a career tool, and it works very differently from traditional social media. For example, on Facebook, you mostly connect with people you already know, your friends, family, or coworkers. You wouldn't typically send a friend request to a total stranger. And if you do, you might be a little bit weird. But on LinkedIn, that's expected. Connecting with people you don't know yet, especially those in your industry, is exactly how it's meant to be used. Trust me, I've talked to several game dev recruiters, and almost all of them said the same thing. LinkedIn is one of the main ways to find new candidates. Some recruiters don't even use other tools, they just use LinkedIn. So if you're serious about landing a job, you should be using it to your advantage. So get that LinkedIn page set up. The best way to start is making sure your profile is complete. A proper profile picture is an advantage. It makes your account look more professional and approachable, more human. But if you don't really like putting your pictures up, it's fine, just don't put your profile picture as a meme or something. Then you should start connecting with people in game dev, especially recruiters and people within your area of professional interest. Adding a few connections every day when finding a new job, interacting with posts, and sometimes even leaving a small comment on a industry discussions can actually make a difference. But networking isn't just about being active on LinkedIn. Another thing worth doing is to put yourself in the real-world situations where you can meet people in the industry. This means attending game jams, Gamedev conferences and events, joining Discord servers of game dev communities, or joining a collective of developers. I've seen job openings that were never posted publicly but were mentioned in a Discord server or at a game dev event. And also there is something called opportunity hire, where a company might not even be hiring, but they meet someone awesome and promising, so they decide to bring them anyway. And one piece of advice I really want to emphasize here is find a game jam and sign up. You can do it right now. Literally pause the video, Google hot game jams in your area and just find a few that you would want to participate in. A game jam gives you real project experience, a chance to work with other developers, and most importantly, a way to get noticed and build connections. I will give you a personal example. Back when I was a student, I joined a game jam pretty much just for free pizza. I wasn't expecting much from it, but my team ended up winning, and after that, the company running the event offered us jobs. I basically showed up for pizza and memes and walked away with career. And that first job led me to more experience, making my own games and eventually working in AAA studios. That's why I always recommend game jams. They can give you a project for your portfolio and put you in the same space as industry professionals and people interested to join it, making you far more visible than just sending out resumes. And of course, game jams aren't the only way to network. Gamedev conferences and industry events are also great for meeting people. Even small local events can lead to surprising opportunities. And once you've started building your network, it's time to focus on your resume. My advice is to do it after you have something to show in your portfolio. At the start of your career, your resume might not be packed with experience. And that's okay, but if you have your portfolio, you can do it in a smart way. Okay, so the first thing you need to understand is how recruiters read your resume and what they actually look for. Here is how I would recommend structuring it. Start with your name and a short header that clearly states who you are. If you are applying for a level designer role, write level designer, not just game developer or, I don't know, cookie enjoyer. Be specific about the role you're aiming for. Next, list your work experience. If you've worked at a game development company, include the studio's name, your position, and the project you worked on. A clear timeline helps to show how your career has progressed. If your work experience is outside of game dev, include it as well, especially if you are just now entering the game dev space. Any job even remotely connected to IT, software development, or creative work can be relevant. But even if it's something completely unrelated, it can still prove that you know how to work in a professional environment and collaborate with others. Since you've already built a personal portfolio, because you should, as I mentioned, that should be also treated as your experience in your resume. If you've made a game on your own, list it just like any job. Explain what you did, what tools you used, and what you learned from it. At the beginning of your journey, it's very helpful. Just make sure to specify that it was a personal project. Now let's move to the really important section. To the side of your experience, preferably on the left margin, add a skills and expertise section. This is where recruiters immediately look, so it needs to be clear and structured as a keyword-driven list of your strongest skills. Now, here's an important tip that can give you an edge. Let's say you built a 3D platformer as a personal project. You designed the player's movement system, but you also built the level layouts and environments. Therefore, you gained an entry job experience for creating both player abilities and building levels. Now let's imagine you're applying for two different jobs. One as a junior player abilities designer and another as a junior level designer. What you can do right now is create two versions of your resume, literally two resumes, two files, and tailor each version to highlight the most relevant skills for a particular job. For the player abilities designer role, put your player movement design skills at the top of your expertise list and mention level design further down. And for the level design role, do the opposite. Make the level design main focus and list player abilities as secondary. So again, you're ending up with 2 resumes for 2 job openings. This can sometimes make a difference and work to your advantage. Recruiters prioritize resumes that directly match their job descriptions, and adjusting your resume this way makes it far more likely to get noticed. It is a completely normal practice that many professionals at all the levels use to improve their chances during recruitment. Of course, you should never lie on your resume. If the level design in your personal project was actually done by someone else, do not claim it as your expertise. Getting caught lying can make it way harder to land a job, not just now, but even in the future as well. As a general rule, always be honest, but present your experience in the most relevant way possible. When tailoring your resume for a specific job listing, you can sometimes adjust the phrasing of your previous positions, as long as you stay honest about what you actually did. For example, let's say that in a previous company you worked primarily as a level designer, but your official title was game designer. If you're applying for a level design position, it's completely fine to phrase that position as level designer in your resume. Just make sure to include a short description where you mention that your official title was game designer. Why does it even matter? Because recruiters are usually far more interested in what you actually did than in what your job title happened to be. They scan your resume for keywords that match the role they are hiring for. If your responsibilities were focused on level design, but your title was vague, your resume might not even make it past the first filter. So again, adjusting the phrasing to better reflect your actual work can significantly improve your chances of getting noticed, as long as you don't misinterpret what you did. Again, stay honest, but make sure your experience is presented in the clearest and most relevant way possible, tailored for a job position you're setting your resume for. Another tip to building your resume is to highlight skills that are valuable across any role in game development. Some technical skills are universally useful and can set you apart from other candidates. For example, one of the biggest ones is understanding version control systems, like Git and Perforce. If you're aiming for a job at a larger studio, Perforce is especially important, as it's the industry standard for handling large-scale projects. Even if you're applying for a non-technical role, knowing how version control works shows that you are familiar with professional workflows and collaboration tools. Every game developer uses some form of version control systems when working with other people. Another great skill to have on your resume is creating and maintaining design documentation. In tools like Confluence or Miro, many studios rely on those skills for structuring game design, projects planning, and communication between teams. Before applying for a job, take some time to learn these tools and include them in your resume. Even if they are not a core part of your role, having that knowledge can make a real difference in how recruiters perceive your application. Now that you have your portfolio, you started networking, and you created a resume, it's time to start applying for jobs from the list you created. I reached out to recruiters as well as developers and designers who are directly involved in hiring, and I gathered some of the most common questions candidates are asked during interviews, especially for junior game dev positions. You can see them now on the screen. Take a moment to go through them and think about how you would answer them. Then share your answers in the comments, and I will go through it and reply with some of the best ways to approach those questions. If you're interested in a deeper dive into recruitment for specific job, whether it's animation, game design, programming, QA, PR, or any other role, let me know in the comments. I can prepare a dedicated video breaking down what is important for each field. In the next 2 videos, I will be covering how to start a career as a solo developer and how to build your own game dev company, including hiring a team and seeking a publisher. If that sounds interesting, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on those. If you found this video helpful, leave a like and consider sharing it with someone who might also be looking for a job in the industry. Breaking into game dev isn't easy, but it's absolutely possible. Start building your portfolio today. Connect with others in the industry and don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Your dream job could be just one game jam and free pizza away. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!